opens the d-file and stakes a claim in the center, aiming for rapid piece development and control of key squares. Opening the diagonal for the bishop hints at a flexible setup, prioritizing piece development over immediate central occupation. This bishop's aggressive sortie immediately contests black's central pawn structure, potentially leading to early tactical skirmishes. Developing the knight to a natural square, the knight can now support pawn breaks and control central squares. Asserting central dominion, c4 aims to expand white's pawn phalanx and restrict black's knight's scope. Knight redistribution to bolster the center and prepare for queenside development, creating a flexible pawn structure. Developing knights to their natural squares strengthens the center's pawn chain and prepares for kingside castling. Challenging the bishop's placement directly, black asks white a pointed question about their intentions. Shifting the bishop to the flank prepares a kingside attack and potentially exploits black's slightly passive pawn structure. Aggressively challenging, the bishop opens a diagonal for your own pieces, but might expose your king to future attacks. Sacrificing a tempo to untangle the queenside, preparing to challenge the open center and potentially target the weakened kingside structure. Unleashing a knight on the flank, black sacrifices immediate central presence for potential kingside disruption. Fortifying the center, white prepares a solid pawn structure and opens lines for queen and bishop development. Exchanging knights on g3 opens a vital diagonal for black's queen and bishop, potentially targeting white's weakened kingside pawn structure. Opening the kingside file offers attacking potential, but weakens your own pawn shield. Developing the bishop here completes black's development, bringing the piece to a well-placed square where it eyes the queenside and prepares to castle. Asserting the bishop to a more active diagonal, potentially eyeing the queenside and reinforcing the central pawn structure while preparing for kingside castling. Solidifying the kingside pawn structure, this move prepares to challenge white's central influence and potentially activate the bishop on f8. Developing the knight to a square that facilitates castling and supports the central pawn structure, while avoiding the immediate pawn pushes positional drawbacks. Developing the queen to e7 prepares for castling and connects the rooks for future play. Propelling the g-pawn aggressively carves out queenside space, but it does create an inherent weakness on the dark squares around the king. Re-establishing knight control on the kingside strengthens black's pawn structure and prepares for a potential queenside counterplay. Stepping the knight back allows for potential pawn storms on the kingside and solidifies the center. Black seeks to connect the rooks and improve the bishop's scope, aiming for a more harmonious setup amidst white's pawn structure. Initiating a queenside expansion, this repositions the queen to eye a potential queenside attack and support a pawn advance. Black challenges the center aggressively, aiming to disrupt white's pawn structure and open lines for counterplay. Unleashing the queenside initiative, this castling gambit opens the door for attacking possibilities while momentarily exposing the king. Safeguarding the monarch by tucking it behind the pawn chain clarifies intentions, initiating opposite-side castling. A preemptive king safety measure, securing the monarch on its new, somewhat exposed file. Shielding the king from potential central infiltration, this maneuver prepares to bolster the queenside pawn structure and perhaps initiate a counteroffensive. Bolstering the bishop's influence, this maneuver prepares to eye the queenside and potentially reinforce central control. This move initiates a dynamic struggle for the c-file, aiming to undermine white's queenside pawns and disrupt their castled king's safety. Initiating a pawn thrust to disrupt black's queenside development and seize central space. Opening the e-file creates immediate counterplay, forcing white to defend their king's exposed position. Unleashing the bishop to g3 creates immediate pressure on the d-file's central pawns. This captures a pawn, opening lines and creating immediate tactical possibilities on the queenside, forcing recalculation of material balance. Unlocking the c-file for a potential pawn storm is the idea behind this capture. Securing the queen on a more active diagonal, This placement simultaneously defends the d-pawn and prepares for potential queenside counterplay. Unleashing pressure on the kingside pawn structure, this knight repositioning aims to exploit imbalances. Securing the bishop's safety from the knight's outpost, black prioritizes piece harmony over immediate pawn advances. Suddenly opening the queen captures a pawn and creates central pressure, but leaves your king exposed. Pursuing queenside activity by engaging white's rook on the open c-file while reinforcing the d5 outpost seems to be the primary aim here. Undermining black's queenside pawn structure, this knight foray threatens to infiltrate and disrupt black's defensive setup. A bold pawn push gambit, aiming to ignite queenside activity, now facing a crucial defense of its structure. Solidifying the pawn chain, this aims to restrict black's knight and prepare potential kingside advances, though it weakens the dark squares somewhat. Initiating a dangerous pawn storm on the kingside, black aims to shatter white's king safety, hoping the exposed monarch cannot withstand the impending assault. Opening the central files dramatically introduces tactical possibilities and exposes the kings to potential skirmishes. A daring knight sortie into enemy territory, seeking to disrupt white's pawn structure and create counterplay. Shifting the queen to c1 aims to support a potential kingside pawn storm, while also eyeing the c-file. Challenging the pawn chain creates dynamic imbalances and opens attacking avenues on the queen side. Exploiting the open g-file to expose the black king, a bold decision under pressure. A desperate attempt to open lines for counterplay, but it exposes the king's diagonal to fatal threats. Sacrificing the rook opens diagonals, but leaves your monarch exposed to relentless pressure. A desperate attempt to complicate matters, sacrificing material for fleeting counterplay against the white king. Reopening the g-file shatters black's king safety, initiating a sharp, aggressive attack. Reasserting queenside pressure is a bold choice, aiming to disrupt white's pawn structure and exploit the open lines. Sharpening the attack on the king side, the queen repositions to support potential pawn advances while controlling key squares. Liberating the rook from its defensive duty allows it to contest the vital c-file, seeking counterplay. Unleashing the knight to c3 attempts to resolve white's cramped queenside and challenge black's pawn structure, though it concedes significant central space. A bold attempt to shatter the center, gambling on opening lines and hoping for tactical chaos to overwhelm white's king. Unleashing the rook to pressure the d-pawn creates fascinating tactical possibilities and a potential for piece activity. Unleashing the d-pawn creates a dynamic struggle for central space, potentially opening lines or leading to an exchange. The pawn structure is fractured, but the open h-file now offers immediate tactical possibilities for white's queen. Exchanging queens opens a critical d-file for black's rook, offering an unexpected attacking avenue despite the king's compromised pawn shield. The knight's re-entry centralizes, initiating a tense dance for control of crucial squares. Sacrificing material to disrupt the opponent's pawn structure, hoping to gain activity in this endgame. Opening the b-file aims to finally activate the beleaguered rook on the queen side. Bringing the rook to the second rank offers immediate activity, but the lack of pawn support on the king side leaves a lingering vulnerability. Opening the b-file creates crucial tactical avenues for your rooks to exploit the weakened queenside pawns. This knight jump reclaims central influence and opens possibilities for pawn advances. Reasserting central control and preparing for pawn advances across the queen side. The king, now exposed on c8, desperately seeks shelter, but the board's open nature offers little respite. A calculated repositioning, the knight aims to support the passed pawn's advance through central control. Activating the bishop offers counterplay against white's weakened kingside pawn structure. Targeting the exposed black monarch with the knight provides a potent attacking thrust. The knight repositions to prepare a potential pawn push, aiming to exploit the weakened queenside. Solidifying the king's safety by tucking it away from open lines. Reactivating the knight to the queenside opens up possibilities for pawn breakthroughs or harassing the white king. Stabilizing the rook on the d-file aims to prevent pawn infiltration and prepare a potential exchange, consolidating white's weakened pawn structure. Unleashing the knight to c6 reclaims control of key central squares and prepares for potential pawn pushes. Relocating the monarch to the queen's side prepares to defend the vulnerable pawns and potentially launch a counterattack. The rook's repositioning to the first rank aims to disrupt white's king safety, creating active play. Activating the rook to contest the open file offers a vital defensive resource. The rook's relocation aims to harass the white king and create mating threats along the third rank. Unleashing the f-pawn spear to destabilize black's knight outpost and force concessions. Controlling the kingside rook lift offers a chance to simplify into a favorable pawn endgame. Securing the king amid the board's chaos is paramount.